A new bill titled the 21st Century Free Speech Act seeks to stop censorship by companies like Facebook and Twitter by repealing Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. In a Wall Street Journal op-ed, our next guest, the author of the legislation, states, quote, instead of being accountable to people, this public square is owned by big tech corporations that use opaque, inconsistent practices to control the information presented to and discussed by American people. All right, strong stuff. Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, also former U.S. ambassador to Japan. Senator, well done. Walk us through some of the high points for this act. It's high time you had some concrete legislation.
Well, thank you, Larry. It's great, as always, to be back on with you. And I think you know that some of these large tech companies really function as modern-day common carriers today. What my act does is actually acknowledge that. If you think about it, it's the same as telephones and telegraphs once were. So many people get most of their information today from these large platforms that are essentially unregulated. They're allowed to censor. They're allowed to determine what we learn, what we believe. I don't think Americans want that at all. So what my act does is it repeals Section 230, the protection that they've been able to live behind. It really requires all of these large tech companies defined as large common platforms that have over 100 million monthly subscribers. These platforms are going to have to be open to all comers in a very similar manner that we've regulated other organizations of that type in the past.
Senator, do you want to get rid of 230, which is the liability shield, or reform 230? There's always a little gray area, you know, and people who are on your side, including myself, are never quite sure the best way to go. How do you propose it in your bill?
Well, this will eliminate Section 230. And
Total
what
elimination.
it will do is prevent censorship in the form that we've seen take place most recently. You know, it's been egregious where major American political figures like President Trump can be censored, yet someone like the Ayatollah can stay up and remain online while calling for death to Israel. You know, you had accurately reported stories in the New York Post about Hunter Biden taken down. This sort of censorship is not what America wants, and we don't need these large corporations to tell us what to think, what to believe.
I mean, I think in your op-ed piece in the Journal, I mean, this is something. Amazon removed from its streaming service an acclaimed documentary on Justice Thomas, all right? Justice Clarence Thomas. He's a Supreme Court justice on black history, and they took that off. Now, Supreme Court justice is not typically regarded as incendiary or revolutionary, and they just did that. And I also was doing Governor of Florida said that he had a hearing, okay, he had a hearing with a couple of scholars from Harvard, I think, and Oxford University or something like that, where they discussed, you know, different points of view about the pandemic and about wearing masks and about the shutdowns. And they struck that from YouTube. It was on YouTube, and they just took that out. That's crazy. I mean, that really is obvious overboard stuff.
Indeed, and with no explanation of what the rules are that are being applied. That's not the way the American public needs to be treated. Again, it's up to Americans to determine what they want to learn, the ideas that they want to share. And we don't need these large corporations, again, hiding behind the veil of 230 to use these opaque standards to dictate what they believe Americans ought to see and hear.
As your diplomatic experience, by the way, Governor DeSantis, I didn't mean to shortchange him. Sometimes you can't remember everything when you're on air. Senator Hagerty, just a quickie on this flap over John Kerry leaking intel to Iran, which is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
We've been discussing it on this show quite a bit. We will continue to follow the story. You are, of course, a seasoned diplomat yourself. How do you read this story?
I think it's a terrible story. It's a terrible story for American security. It shows the recklessness of some of the appointees that President Biden has brought in. We've seen the same thing happen today with Colin Kahl, the number 3 person at the Pentagon. I raised this point very clearly. Kahl tweeted out classified information, and Larry, you and I both had to live by the rules of managing classified information. It's got to be covered, it's got to be locked down, very specific rules. It should never be allowed out in the open. This Colin Kahl, and it sounds like John Kerry now too, is giving classified information to our enemies, talking about our allies and sharing that information with our enemies. This is something that is absolutely beyond the pale. I agree that John Kerry should resign over this. There's no way we should allow someone like this to have a secured position in the White House.
And real quick, final point, Senator Hagerty, we're going to put up on the full screen poll. We're going to hear a lot of big government talk from President Biden. Preference for government. 56% prefer smaller government and less taxes. Only 36 want higher taxes and larger government. So he's playing to the 36%.
I think that the American public's going to be very disappointed with what they hear tonight, because I think you're exactly right. Biden is playing to a left-wing fringe, and what we're going to hear is a socialist wish list of things that he'd like to see accomplished with these misnamed bills that accomplish exactly the opposite.
All right, got up a hard break, Senator Bill Hagerty. Thank you ever so much.
Wonderful to be
Good luck on the free speech amendment.